Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Srisavasdi with the CinemAddicts podcast. This installment will be 2 sets of interviews. First one is for Dangerous Animals. This is an interview with Hassie Harrison and Josh Heuston. They are the lead actors, along with Jai Courtney. Was not able to get Jai Courtney, but I got both Hassie Harrison and Josh Heuston for Dangerous Animals. Very good movie. I'll talk about that in a second. And then speaking of second, the last interview is with filmmaker Chris Merola. He is the director behind this new movie called Lemonade Blessing. Both of these interviews will be airing back to back. My interview is about 7-ish minutes, and Eric Holmes' interview is around 12 minutes. So these are both very short interviews that will hopefully prepare you for this week's CinemAddicts podcast, because we have interviews, we have reviews of Dangerous Animals and Lemonade Blessing as well. So think of this little installment as an addition to our main episode, which we will be doing a lot of reviews this week. And the good thing is, like Bruce Purkey mentioned in a message chat this morning, it's a very good week for movie watchers, for cinephiles, for fellow cinematics like all of us. So hopefully you'll find some added value from the movies that we're covering this week, including Lemonade Blessing and, yes, Dangerous Animals. Speaking of which, if you like shark movies, thrillers, action-packed thrillers, tense thrillers, Dangerous Animals should be your cup of tea. It centers on this young surfer. I don't have IMDb up right now, so I'm not going to actually mention their names, but Hassie Harrison plays a nomadic surfer. I believe she's from the States, Yeah, and she's visiting Australia, surfing there, living a loner lifestyle. She ends up hooking up with this local, seemingly nice guy, played by Josh Heuston, and there's some really interesting things about him that at the beginning of the narrative that you'll find out, and I'm not going to spoil for you, but their hookup leads to her, she has chemistry with him, they have chemistry with each other, but she ends up extricating herself from him, and what happens by doing that, by separating herself from him, she ends up, horrible twist of fate, she encounters a serial killer, and that serial killer is played by Jai Courtney. This killer feeds his victims to the sharks in the nearby waters. He has a boat. He goes out in the middle of the ocean. He sometimes kills or throws his victims overboard for them to be eaten alive by these sharks. So he captures her, the Hassie Harrison character. He captures that young surfer woman. He keeps her captive on the boat, and you find out, I'm not going to really spoil what else is in the boat or what else is going on, but there may be other people involved in the boat, and that's very harrowing as well. Josh Heuston is, for a lot of the narrative, he's trying to figure out why this girl left him, and he starts putting pieces together, and ultimately his character encounters the Jai Courtney character as well in Dangerous Animals. So a lot of it, this movie is essentially a three-hander among these three actors out in the middle of the ocean. And then obviously the fourth character are the sharks. So directed by Sean Byrne, this is a near perfect movie for me. I don't know why I'm not giving Dangerous Animals 5 stars. Maybe it's the gray poop, wannabe aristocratic, upper crust suburbanite in me that's not giving it 5 stars. But this is a 4.5 star movie. And I'll tell you why it's close to perfect. It could have been just a simple shark exploitation movie with some beautiful lead actors, a twisted man in Jai Courtney, but all of these actors and the filmmaking crew, they just level up their game, meaning the tense thriller moments are top-notch. Hassie Harrison she mentioned this in the interview, as a scream queen and as just a physical action presence, she has a couple of very good standout sequences with Jai Courtney. Josh Heuston also holds his own with Jai Courtney and the sharks and that all of the environment, which I'm not going to really give away, but both actors mention their physicality in the movie and what it took to actually pull off Dangerous Animals. And I hope this movie, when it comes out this weekend, it hits theaters Friday, June 6th. I hope it gets a ton of attention. Like I mentioned in the interview, this is a movie that's worth watching with some friends or even by yourself in theaters. It is a theatrical experience. Again, Hassie Harrison, have not seen her yet in Yellowstone. I think she was in a movie I don't have IMDb. I think I remember her years ago from this indie film called Southbound, but that was probably 10 years ago. Josh Heuston, this is the first time I have the Dune Prophecy Blu-ray that I need to review down the road, but have not seen him in Dune Prophecy yet, but really liked him as well. Last but definitely not least, Jai Courtney, recognized him way back in the day as one of the main baddies, along with who else is the lead main baddie? Is not Wim Wenders. Who is, I'm just completely blanking on the director. Yes, who is the director? Hold on one second. Sorry, I completely blanked. Werner Herzog and Jai Courtney, they were in Jack Reacher, that Tom Cruise movie. And that's the first time I recognized him. And over the years, I've liked him in a bunch of movies, enjoyed him as Boomerang in those Suicide Squad films. But his role as a serial killer in Dangerous Animals is just a complete standout. He really takes up space in this movie, and he is a great antagonist and a really wonderful other side of the coin as he battles both of these young stars in Dangerous Animals. Again, this is a movie I hope does not get ignored. If for some horrible reason it doesn't do well in theaters, it will definitely get a lot of play in streaming and digital and on demand. This is one of those movies I feel will gain a ton of momentum. Anyways, here is my interview with Hassie Harrison and Josh Heuston for Dangerous Animals. Also, Bruce Purkey will have a full, more in-depth review of Dangerous Animals this week on our main Cinematics show. Okay, here's the interview, and take care. Hi guys, I'm Greg Srisavasdi with Deepest Dream. Pleasure to meet you both.
Nice to meet you.
So, first off, growing up as kids, did you ever have a dream that one day one of your films would be in Cannes as kids? But how does it feel now as adults? And I've never reported. It must be an amazing experience for both of you.
Yeah, I think it's been so surreal. I'm on a high from it all, To go to Cannes and also to be so well received is just, the night it premiered, I think I couldn't stop crying. It was so meaningful to me and just, like you said, just a dream come true.
It's one of the most prestigious film festivals in the world. So especially to get a standing ovation, was nuts. I didn't know where to put my hands while it was going on. I tried every single position in my pocket.
Australians don't like compliments and they don't really like attention. And so they were like, all right, thank you. Let's go. Let's leave. And I was like, all right, guys.
I'd already hugged everyone like 4 times. I didn't know what else to do.
On that sense, this movie has to be seen on the big screen, in my opinion, at least for the first time. What was it like? I'm sure a lot of things are going on in your mind just with this whole thing, but what was it like seeing it with a big crowd and the big screen?
I think that,
Go ahead, sorry. I was just going to say thank you for saying that. Absolutely. It's definitely a movie that you want to go see in the theaters. And, it was so surprising and interesting to watch the movie through other people's perspectives and, where you hear some laughs that I wasn't expecting, where the certain screams are that I was like, oh, but it made it feel so real. And it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. The audience reaction was insane. Yeah. Everyone's laughing, screaming, crying. And it's definitely, you draw a lot from that. And I think it's definitely a group activity.
I'm sure you guys have been over the press rounds, have been asked a lot of shark film questions the first time you saw Jaws and whatnot, but maybe you can answer that. But what was the first film that really scared you from the jump when you were a kid and getting into cinema? For me, it was Jaws and The Exorcist, but what about for you guys? Some movie that really scared you as a kid that really marked you?
Oh, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre always freaked me out as a kid. But Jaws is another one of them. Like in Australia, like you always hear about sharks and whatnot. So that makes it feel a lot more real. But I also get really freaked out about things like Paranormal Activity. The way that was filmed just really freaks me out.
I remember the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
That was so raw. I'm so easily scared though. There's a scene in City Slickers 2, The Rush for Curly's Gold, which is a comedy, but it's a lightning storm outside but they're inside at night and the lightning strikes and then all of a sudden some dude's face is right there. And it's like that. I still think about that every time there's a storm outside.
So I'm just watching the movie. I'm assuming both of you are passionate about surfing. Is that movie magic, or are both of you really into surfing as well? And if so, what is it about the culture and surfing that draws you both in?
Yeah, he's a great surfer, and we got to surf while we were shooting this movie, which was really fun. And, I think for me, it's just, there's no bad days in the water. It's just good to get in the ocean, even if the waves aren't there. It's just to paddle around and just connect. It's so cool.
Yeah, we lived across the road from the beach. So for me, it's a dream come true, really. I'd surfed sometimes before, set and after set. So it's like a holiday at the same time, really.
It really was.
Yeah.
Hassie, on your end, without giving too much away, how much swimming did you have to do? And what's the challenge of the screams are amazing. How do you get up for that energy-wise and physicality-wise? Because I think that's pretty impossible to do.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, one of the prerequisites to this movie was being a strong swimmer. That was super important to Sean, and luckily I am a strong swimmer. And the screams came from a real place. It's super guttural. I can't tell you how many times I lost my voice, and but yeah, full-on scream queen.
And for you, Josh, again, without giving too much away, you have some really great physical moments, and then there are moments where you're in a very uncomfortable place as well. How much physicality was that? Because it may not seem as much, but it seems like a lot when you really break it down to the science of it, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It was quite a physical role, actually, but for me, I always like a challenge, and I had Jai for most of those bigger physical scenes, and he's done stunt work and fight scenes and all that stuff for a massive part of his career. So I took a lot from him and learned a lot along the way. But yeah, no, it was definitely kind of physically demanding in that harness.
You guys killed it, though. Like, y'all's chemistry is its own other thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just so sweet to see.
I love him like a brother, so it was such an easy
And I got
experience.
2 brothers out of this, so
Exactly.
it's great.
Yeah.
You guys are stuck with me.
Absolutely.
Is there something that surprised both of you when you first saw Dangerous Animals? Because this is a thriller that really has a lot of layers to it. So you guys knew the layers because you read the script, but what surprised you both when you first saw the complete cut?
I think for me, it was Jai's performance. When you read the script, I didn't think, like, Tucker's such a charismatic but also menacing character. And then I think that's a big testament to that is what Jai was able to bring to Tucker. Because, I guess you can get played in, like, a very vast amount of ways. It can
Totally. It could have been dark and heavier, and he found a way to create this, like, levity with the character and almost, like, comedic relief that I think makes this genre film fun, And there's, like, a rewatchability to this movie that I'm really proud of,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go watch it in the theater. I'm just gonna hide in there with a hoodie. It's such a fun, cool movie, and just to have that experience of, watching it with other people is so unbelievable.
My final question to both of you is just a quick 2-parter. Can each of you name one of your all-time favorite films, and what is it about this film that still to this day resonates with you? And the second part of that question, after watching this film, Dune Prophecy, and Yellowstone, where should our audience go next regarding a film or TV project that you both feel is really underrated in your resume? And thank you for your time.
You can go first.
Okay, yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah, I guess Blue Valentine, it's one of my all-time favorites, and I think it's next to a perfect film. That's one of my favorite things to watch. And I guess in my resume, just Dangerous Animals is probably the one that you should watch again after watching it.
You guys should go see Dangerous Animals.
Yeah, you go.
Ooh, favorite movie of all time. There's so much pressure there. I always say Legends of the Fall or something like that, but recently I saw a movie called Old Henry that is an incredible movie and it's one of those movies I tell people, like, don't read anything about it, just put it on. And that was one of the cooler movies I've seen in a while.
And from your body of work, what else should people watch? Dangerous Animals, Yellowstone,
Yeah,
what else?
I'm just Dangerous Animals for now.
Okay. Good. Thank you guys so much for your time. We really appreciate it. All right, guys. Yeah, so this interview is with Eric Holmes and Chris Merola. I have no idea. I don't know much about Lemonade Blessing. All I know is I grew up in a Catholic high school here in Los Angeles. And Eric, he immediately after he finished this interview with Merola, he sent me the link, the screening link, and he said, hey, this is a movie that I think you will relate to and that you will like. I think it's a coming-of-age drama of two teenagers. One of them is played by Jake Ryan. And again, I should pull up the other person's name right now. Hold on 1 second. But she is also mentioned in Lemonade Blessing. It centers on basically the Jake Ryan character as he navigates his way through this Catholic high school. It's directed and written by Chris Merola, and its co-stars also another person. I'm going to pull up her name in a second. Most importantly for this movie, as of this moment, it premieres June 5th at a screening at the Tribeca Film Festival. And I'll have the links where you can hopefully, if you're around the area, you can get tickets and check this movie out. Both, spoiler alert, both Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey really enjoyed Lemonade Blessing. So horrible pun, both of them gave their blessing to this movie. And it's funny because I probably will too, because I might be able to relate to some of the characters in Lemonade Blessing. Anyways, it's written and directed by Chris Merola. It stars, again, like I said, Jake Ryan and Sky Alyssa Friedman as the other high schooler. I'm sure there's other people involved in this movie. There's a whole bunch of cast and crew. I will definitely see this, but probably not in time for its Tribeca film screening. I will leave a link for that. It's also in competition for the U.S. Narrative category. So U.S. Narrative competition. So hopefully Lemonade Blessing will have its share of good word of mouth from that fest. And ultimately in the interview, Merola talks about how he wants to get distribution for his movie. And hopefully this movie down the road will have a limited theatrical release. So here is Eric Holmes' interview with Chris Merola. Again, gets a seal of approval by CinemAddicts hosts Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes. Check it out. And by the way, thanks again for supporting us on CinemAddicts. Most importantly, support Dangerous Animals, support Lemonade Blessing. Once you see it, hit us up. Tell us what you think of the movie. Take care, guys. Bye.
I'm here with Chris Merola, writer and director of Lemonade Blessing. I guess the first thing that kind of struck me, actually it wasn't the first thing that struck me about this movie. The first thing that struck me is that the adult characters, I wanted to choke almost all of them. And then about halfway through the movie, I'm like, this is child abuse, like what every adult is doing to this poor child.
Yeah.
And what was kind of your thoughts and intentions going into this?
It was really important that I tried as much as possible to just render like the most truthful story possible while trying to be like honest to the fact that every character is the protagonist of their own story. And there really are people who take their faith so seriously for whatever reason. They may have suffered some sort of psychological trauma or some sort of pain, and then they cling to faith like a life raft. Maybe there's someone who they really were raised in this environment and it means a lot of security to them. So they cling to that even when there's unsavory elements that involve putting pressure onto others. But I'm very like deterministic about these things. Like I really do think people are often the products of their upbringings. And so I don't really resent anybody for over identifying with religion and kind of putting that on other people. It's a really difficult thing. And yeah, in some cases, it probably does qualify as child abuse. But I don't know, when I was making it, I was trying to have empathy for all the characters and just try to see things from where they are so that I could give all of my actors notes so that they're never judging their characters. They're always in the moment. These are people, they're trying their best. And yes, they totally do things that I would not do myself. But I wouldn't have made the film if I didn't think that people like this existed. And so I think it is important to display that truth no matter how it makes people feel, because there's a total range of reactions we've gotten from, yeah, I want to choke the parents to empathize with the parents to some degree. So everything in between. And I think that's really good, giving people space to have their own reactions to these things.
I think one of the great things about, especially the older characters in this, is that I didn't want to choke them, but they're not evil. Like I see where they're coming from. How many like different drafts or how many different iterations of these characters did it take you to finally get to where these characters finally became in Lemonade Blessing?
That's a great question. First draft, I wrote in a notebook, I wrote down memories I had from my youth, and I noticed commonalities between them, like little narrative arc commonalities. And then I would write the scenes out of order, depending on what I was in the mood to do. And then I stitched it together. And one thing I'll say about myself is my first drafts are a little myopic in the sense that, yeah, the protagonist is definitely kind of like the smartest one, and everyone else is a little mean and a little simple and a little one-dimensional. And I guess that's just my own like self-absorption that I need to overcome in the rewriting process, where I try to do rewrites where I write the story from the perspective of the other characters, where I'm like, let me give them the line of dialogue or the beat that they would get if this was their story and they were the protagonist. And so, yeah, I rewrote it a bunch of times. I think, I don't know, maybe there's like 16, 17 drafts, I would say, but the most significant changes occurred between drafts 1 and draft 6, where I actually combined 2 characters that became Angelo. Like Angelo was previously 2 different characters and I combined them into one. Stuff like that, little things, just turning things over in your head, trying to make it more visual, like the panic attack sequence was, I think, like a draft 3 or draft 4 thing, that sort of stuff.
Or some early drafts, so maybe scenes or characters or something earlier draft this. I really wish that could have made in the movie, but it just doesn't work here anymore.
Oh God, I get so many. I'm a very like anxious person. I'm always going over things in my head and like feeling like, oh, should we have done this? Should we have done that? One thing that like occurred early on in the first draft is I just had a kind of cross-cutting sequence like before like page 10 where it just shows John going through his daily life and showing the fact that they do pray in every class and he's kind of bored and disconnected from his classes. And yeah, I think that's one aspect of the film that like was a big part of like my high school experience where like it was actually a very strict school, not just in terms of ethics, but also in terms of academics. And I don't really feel like the film ended up portraying that because it didn't feel 100% essential. And you have to be so ruthless about what you include in the script. So I think that some of the life of what it's like in the classroom was lost a little bit in first draft. And then there's also some scenes that are just like, they were so funny, but they ultimately were harming the tone, the balance between taking these characters seriously and having comedic beats. There was one scene where John's talking to his dad and his dad's distracted as ever. And he's trying to be like, Dad, I'm getting further with my girlfriend. And the dad's super distracted. And then Angelo calls him and he's like, oh, that's her now. And he's on the phone with Angelo pretending that he's Lilith. And so Angelo's trying to ask him about, hey, can you give me the Bible back? And he's trying to make it sound like they're talking about going and looking basically. And so Pete is like looking up and he's like, what the hell? Like my 15-year-old son is like having sex. And so that was a really funny scene with a lot of double entendres that I really enjoyed. But I think it was ultimately not super psychologically incisive, so I did end up cutting it. A lot of jokes had to be cut because it just wasn't as, I think, it just wasn't as taking this situation seriously as it could have been.
Yeah. I guess one thing that kind of worried me is watching this because the two main actors, I believe they're 21 now. They read as high school children. And so there's scenes in here where I'm like, what the hell are you doing to these damn children? And then I see they're of age. I'm like, okay, yeah, this works. But what was kind of that thought process and the casting process? Because you want them to look like high school children, but some of the stuff you're having these guys do in this movie, I would have big problems with if they're actually of the age that they're portraying in the movie.
Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting philosophical and ethical challenge that filmmakers need to answer, which is, we know that kids are having sex and they're sexually active before they come of age. We know that's a fact. We've all been young. We've all been there. How do you responsibly portray that in a film that's honest to that experience without trying to make it seem titillating, without taking advantage of any performers who are at that age and would be having underage experiences filmed and broadcast? So the first thing we did was, of course, we decided we were going to cast 18 and older, and we ended up casting people who were like 20 and 22, John and Lilith. And then additionally, we had an intimacy coordinator. We talked extensively about what it was we were doing, and we rehearsed it extensively so that everyone was comfy on set. Of course, we had a closed set so that nobody could look at monitor what was going on. And then additionally, I would say the coverage was designed to be about the emotional experience of this, right? There's no nudity. To me, there are no shots in any of the sex scenes that linger or titillate. It's not like we're doing like Euphoria where like 30-year-olds that are like really conventionally attractive are like having sex on screen, they're naked, but they're portraying high schoolers. To me, that is like vastly more concerning than anything we did here. I feel good. I don't have qualms about what we did here, although I understand it raises hackles for some people, but I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yeah. Once I found out the age of the actors, I'm like, okay, we're safe.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, there's many movies where I'd watch, I'm like, oh, like my behind the scenes brain turns on. I'm like, how did they do this? And did they do this correctly?
Yeah.
Which sounds like you did.
No, it's good to check in though. Like filmmakers need to be held to like ethical standards. Like we're not just trying to beg, borrow, and steal. Like one of my big things when we were making this is like, I told the cast and crew, I was like, if we make a good film, we will have failed. The goal is not to make a good film. The goal is to make a good film while upholding the happiness and health of the cast and crew. And one thing I'm really passionate about, besides just making good films, is like from a producerial perspective, respecting people so that like people don't have the experiences that I had when I was a PA and I was working on film sets, and people are just so mean and disrespectful to people's like common humanity. So I think it's good that you're asking questions like that, and you should keep asking questions like that and hold filmmakers to higher standards, because that's the only way that this industry is going to get any better.
Yeah. Well, speaking of good film and sex, not to verbally fillet you too much, but this movie's excellent. And I believe this is your first feature film, which unfortunately for you, you got to follow this up. So
I'm excited,
you set a high bar for yourself. What's your next step, or are you even thinking of the next film at this point?
I've got another feature written that I'm storyboarding right now, and I would want Jake to star in it. He knows about it. He hasn't signed on yet because I want the script to be perfect for him, but it's sort of like the father-son to Lemonade's mother-son, and it takes place in like 2021 during the GameStop short squeeze. It's basically a kid trying to impress his dad by gambling his life savings away on GameStop stock, and then he has to get all the money back before his dad finds out. So it's a bit more of an internet-y ADHD gambling addiction movie, but I think it'll maintain a lot of the threads of what hopefully people liked about the style of this, while also being something different and a step forward, hopefully.
I think just the idea of having that whole GameStop thing will attract viewers. And so love Lemonade Blessing. It's premiering at Tribeca Film Festival on what day is it? June 5th?
Yes, I'm super stoked. Super stoked.
I don't suppose you have any release plans after that. That's kind of what film festivals are for, right?
We're going there for distro. We got Submarine on as sales agent. They're absolutely incredible. I think they were just showing like teasers. I cut a couple of teasers and they just took it to Cannes and showed it to some distributors. So fingers crossed. I would love to land with a distributor who's going to do limited theatrical and really cares about the film as much as we do, and is going to, do the legwork with us to promote it so that we can have a nice limited release, a nice form release.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the luck, because again, this movie's really great, and I see this doing like kind of like a maybe like a Lady Bird thing where it just kind of comes out of nowhere and everyone's, what the hell is this? This is cool. But I do want to end on this, just get a film recommendation from you, something that is really personal to you, or just something that you like. This movie's really good and no one talks about it.
Oh my God. Oh, there's so many. Oh, wow. So, okay, I have a couple. Can I do a couple answers? Can I just rapid fire?
No, you can do it.
Okay. So the sort of like obvious pick that like I really love that's really popular is like Uncut Gems. I feel very seen by the communication style in that movie, for better or worse. Like I was raised in an environment where people were always talking over each other. And so the way that the Safdies do communication is very meaningful to me. One film that is not very personal to me, but I think everyone should watch is like Satan Tango. It's a 7.5 hour slow cinema film by Bella Tarr. It's literally just like a meditative experience, and like you'll sink into your subconscious while you watch it, and you'll just have so many like thoughts about like your life, because you're just watching a 10-minute shot of like Eastern Europeans walking through a cobblestone path, and you're like, what is my life? So Satan Tango is excellent. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else. I'm trying to think. Last year, oh God, everyone should see Nickel Boys. I think Nickel Boys was one of the most important films that came out in the last decade. I think it is just one of the most incredible inhabitings of subjectivity that I've seen. And even though obviously like intersectionally, I don't have that much in common with Ramel Ross, I think that we both have an interest in inhabiting subjectivity. I think Nickel Boys might have been one of the most daring, emotional, and also just ethically responsible inhabitings of subjectivity I've seen in a while, where you literally are simulating what it is like to be treated as a Black person in like Jim Crow era South, which is just like crazy. And I just don't think it got seen enough. So I would tell people to go watch that. I think those are 3 films. That's my one answer in 3. Yeah.
All right. Well, the Satan Tango, I might have to get some mushrooms for that one, sounds like, but
dude, I fucking love mushrooms. I was the only guy sober watching Satan Tango, man. Everyone was high in the American Cinematheque on that day except me.
Well, Chris, thanks for joining me, and congratulations on Lemonade Blessing, and can't wait for it to come out for everyone to see. I hope the movie's a hit, and can't wait to see what else you got in store for us.
Dude, thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it.